Motivation. Sultan and Peter Skehan mentioned that the concept of motivation is just as surrounding with theoretical controversies as is the concept of learning strategy. Motivation doesn't remain constant, but is associated with a dynamically changing and evolving mental process, characterized by constant reappraisal and balancing of the various external and internal influences that the individual is exposed to. There is a process model of learning motivation in the L2 classroom, where the first one is the pre-actional stage, or choice motivation, where the motivational functions are setting goals, forming intentions, and launching action. The main motivational influences are various goal properties, values associated with the learning process itself, as well as with its outcomes and consequences, attitudes toward the L2 and its speakers, expectancy of success and perceived coping potential, and learning beliefs and strategies, and finally the environmental support or hindrance. The second one is the actional stage, or executive motivation, where the motivational functions are generating and carry out, subtask, ongoing appraisal, and action control. The main motivational influences are quality of learning experience, sense of autonomy, teachers and parents' influence, classroom reward and goal structure, influence of the learning group, and finally, the knowledge and use of self-regulatory strategies. The last one is post-actional stage, or motivational retrospection, where the motivational functions are forming causal attributions, elaborating standards and strategies, dismissing intention and further planning, and the motivational influences are attributional factors, self-concept beliefs, and receive feedback, praise, and grades. Motivation is a way to push your students to learn a new language, being dynamic and working with mental processes, taking advantage of the internal and external influences that exist in the environment of the students. In this way, motivation can cause self-confidence in the students, and it creates learning strategies in the acquisition of a second language. Anxiety. According to Rod Ellis, 2008, learners may have an inbuilt tendency to feel anxious, that is called trait anxiety, but they may also, irrespective of their personalities, experience anxiety in particular contexts, that is called situational anxiety. Classroom learners often did experience anxiety, especially when they felt themselves to be in a competition with other learners. A number of studies have shown that anxiety, whether of the speaking, reading, or writing kind, is negatively related to L2 achievement. However, as with motivation, a key issue is whether anxiety is the cause of poor achievement in the result. According to what I understood, anxiety is an important aspect in second language learning, because it could be the main problem that students can be facing in the acquisition of a second language. The anxiety causes the students feel limited to learn a second language due to the different styles of learning and also different levels of English. This aspect can cause the students feel frustrated to speak, to read, etc., because they could be judged by their classmates that have a better level of English. Personality. According to Rod Ellis, 2008, personality is a key factor for explaining individual differences in L2 learning. A number of personality variables have been investigated, including anxiety as a trait, risk-taking, and tolerance of ambiguity, empathy, and self-esteem, and inhibition. According to what I understood, The personality influences the learning process of a second language because all the students have a personality that makes them different to the others. And for that reason, they have different necessities to learn. For example, according to the personality of some students, influences in the way to work in the classroom, because some of them prefer to work in teams, learning each other, and some others prefer to work alone, learning by themselves. That is why all these aspects play an important role in the second language learning. Willingness to communicate. According to Peter McIntyre, 2007, when presented with an opportunity to use their second language, some people choose to speak up and others choose to remain silent. Even after studying a language for many years, many L2 learners will not become L2 speakers. The reasons for choosing to avoid using a second language are not simple if one takes into consideration the various individual, social, linguistic, situational, and other factors that are relevant to the decision to speak in the L2. Willingness to communicate represents the psychological preparedness to use the L2 when the opportunity arises. This requires a focus on the specific moment of decision where a L2 learner chooses to become a L2 speaker. It is suggested that the choice to initiate communication in a L2 is one of the primary facilitators of used language, and as such may be an important predictor of language survival. Willingness to communicate is a specific moment that many students are placed in the second language learning, whether to communicate the language or not. Likewise, to initiate the communication in a L2 is the most important aspect to use the language. For some students, communicating the language could be a problem, and to take this step will depend if they will become L2 speakers, where the social, linguistic, and situational factors influence the decision to communicate the second language.